Hello everybody, we are painting this sweet little winter scene for day 10 of our 12 days of Christmas. So I started drawing before I hit record, my apologies, but you can see I just did a couple lines for hills and then a very basic shape of a house with a couple windows and a door to start with. I also, if you'll notice the roof line, I added an extra line. So I did the basic shape and then I added another line in the same shape. It's going to represent snow when all is said and done. And now I've just got water on my brush and I'm filling in this bottom hill first, just with clean water. And then I'm going to add a little bit of color to it for our snow. I've got Payne's Gray on my brush and just putting in some shadows here. Got a little bit too much water there, but I'm just going to move it around. Too much water and color, but moving it around, it always dries way lighter. And for now, we're just going to kind of put that in here. You can see how that adds just enough, so it's not just a white piece of paper underneath, you know? Now I'm adding some darker color to the top of this hill and the middle hill, just kind of where each hill meets the next. Just thinking there might be a little shadow there. It also just differentiates, kind of separates the hills from one another. And I just think it adds a nice effect too. I don't know. I think this painting turned out really cozy. And I know it can be intimidating when you see maybe kind of like a landscape as opposed to just like, oh, here is a Christmas wreath, you know. But just follow along step by step. I do speed up through the parts where I'm just filling in the hills with water, like I just did with this top hill as well. Filled it in with water. Now I'm adding Payne's Gray. I'm leaving the top of this hill lighter. You can do what you want. I'm doing it lighter just because I'm thinking that's the light is going to be hitting the top of that hill the most. Overthinking it, you know, if this is whimsical, you don't have to be correct about anything. And I'm not saying I am correct. I'm just saying that's how I did it. Okay, and it was too much color, so I just took a paper towel and just dabbed it just to soak up some of that color and dried the whole thing. And now we're coming in to our middle hill, which for some reason I did not just add water to it, but I've got plenty of water on my brush along with my Payne's Gray. And I will be doing a little wet on wet here in a minute, but just filling it in similar to the other ones. And you might wonder why I dried the other two hills before this one, and it's because of this dark line that I'm going to add, because if that top hill was still wet, it would just run right up into that hill as well. And I want it to stay right in our middle hill under the house, and you can just see how it is. I just love wet on wet, how it just kind of works its way down gently into that hill. And I'm just going to add a little bit more because I love that effect. Could have added more to the bottom hill as well, but you know, just play with it and notice how the color in the water moves into that water that's beneath it. And I'm just adding a little bit more water down here. And sometimes I like to do this and let gravity kind of do its thing, because while there's not a ton of like running water, the water will move down into that hill more if I tip my paper up like that. And I wanted it to have that effect on there. And just smoothing out this line down here, it got a little harsh down there. And then going to do the same thing. I've just got some clean water on my brush and tapped it on my paper towel. So it's not a really wet brush, just kind of softening those lines a little bit. And I just love it. Doesn't it look like a really pretty hill? You can just kind of go back and forth on a line if it's really kind of harsh, and it'll soften it up with a nice damp brush. For the sky, I am using something that is called Fresh Blue out of my palette. And I've got mostly water on here. I put a little color so you can see what I'm doing. But filling in our sky, and I will speed it up because this is just a little bit repetitive. You can always pause here if you're painting with me and fill in your sky however long it takes. And I'm taking that same color in the sky and I am going to go on top of those two hills that meet the sky. And I'm going to put, rather than doing the Payne's Gray darker on the top of the hill, I'm going to make the sky a little bit darker, if that makes sense. Again, it doesn't have to make sense, but this is what my brain was doing. And it is going to go, this line that I'm doing along the hill, it is going to have a really cool effect once I get that color on there, because I'm making it wet right now, and now I'm going to add the color, which is going to just watch this. It just kind of starts bleeding up into the sky, which I love. And honestly, right after I kind of tweaked this, I thought, oh, I wish I would have just left it because it kind of, you could imagine these are just trees really far in the distance. Is it blue? Yes, it's blue. But again, we're using our imagination. And I really wish I would have left it right here so you can do what you want. You can leave it here or you can do what I'm about to do, which is just wetting the background a little bit more. And then I'm going to start just with my brush kind of, because I saw trees there, but I thought, oh no, I wanted to be bigger. So then I smoothed it all out and decided to just flick up my brush like this, just to give a very faint indication of trees if you're using your imagination like I am. So this is obviously optional. I kind of like how it turned out, but I also wish I would have left it the way it was. That's with a lot of paintings, like, ooh, I should have stopped right there. But, sometimes I know when to stop and sometimes I don't, and that's okay. So just fill that in however you see fit. You could even dab in like clouds with a paper towel, just soak up some of that, whatever you want. Now I've got a clean brush and I just added a little water and some Payne's Gray into that top hill just because it was looking a little too white for me. And I wanted a little bit of depth in there, and hopefully you can see that happening. This gives some interest and, like I said, depth. So loving that. Now, I would say right here to go up closer to the house because later you will see I have a little issue because it's all white around the house and it kind of looked like the house was glowing. So I tried to fix it and oh, I had a little moment, but that's okay. All right, that is completely dry. I am coming in with a yellow for the windows. I don't want it to be super bright because this is not a nighttime scene. And I know that's super bright right now, but I'm going to fix that a little bit and it will dry lighter. But I don't want it to look like a nighttime scene with lights that bright, if you know what I mean. But I do want them to be noticeable because I think it just gives it a cozy feel. And again, this is a whimsical painting, so I'm now just taking a dry brush and just kind of soaking up some of that water and that color. By the way, I'm using a size 2 brush for this house portion. I am now taking some green and making a little wreath, and I did draw a little circle with my pencil, and so I'm just making little dots all the way around. And you can see they're not straight in a straight circle. You know what I mean? Straight circle. Is that a thing? Probably not. But you know what I'm saying. I just kind of did some loose dots all the way around to make it look like a wreath. And now I'm going to paint my house red, speeding you up because I took my time going around every little element here. Slowing you down just to show you I'm doing a chimney, but doing it on that top line of the roof. Remember I told you I did 2 lines for the roof so that we have a snowy roof. And just a little chimney, I think, again, adds to the coziness of this. Yeah, I like it. And then just adding another coat of that red once the first coat is completely dry. And noticing I didn't paint in where the wreath is, behind the wreath. All right, for the door, now that everything is dry, for the door, I've got a diluted coal black. So I just wanted a gray door, so I just did very watered down black. Obviously, play with whatever colors you would like. And now that everything is completely dry, I'm coming in with my Micron pen and I'm going to outline the entire thing. I'm going to speed you through some of it, slow you down through some of it so you can see, but I'm just going to outline and then I'm going to show you this part right here on the roof. I am doing our initial line that, meets up with the house. And then I'm also going to do a very faint line on top of what is our snow on that roof there. And then continuing on and just outlining our chimney, the door, the windows, adding a couple crosses in the windows. And then for the wreath, I'm just slowing you down to show you. I'm outlining the whole thing with like a wobbly line. And then I'm just drawing just little wobbly lines in the wreath. It just gives it some dimension and probably might not be able to see it on the screen, but it makes a difference in person. Okay, this is where I said, remember how I told you you should get up closer to the house when you're doing your Payne's Gray snow before you add the red, because I went up and I touched the red, and this is just another lesson too of do your light colors first before your dark colors, because you can get in trouble like I did here. And I was like, oh no, now I have pink snow, and I was not going for pink snow. So I tried to like get more water on my brush and dilute it. And then I tried to dry my brush, and then I was like, okay, I guess this one's over. But then I'm like, no, wait, there's always a solution, almost always a solution. I really was going to throw in the towel, but I thought I'm going to let that completely dry and add a couple trees. And here we go. Ooh, is this my Bob Ross moment? Happy little trees saving the day? I think so. And if this is the first video of mine you're seeing about doing trees like this, you can go back to day 5. I have several different videos in the archives, but day 5 of this particular 12 Days of Christmas will kind of tell you a little bit more about that. Not much, because look, I'm really just going back and forth. And I know it's intimidating, but you kind of just got to let go and not think about it too much. You just got to dab, dab, dab in the shape of a triangle, essentially. And you could leave it, I could have just left it right like this. They look like snowy trees, right? But again, I don't always know when to stop. So I'm adding a little bit more color. And I've got a little bit of darker green on my brush now, just to, again, add some dimension and depth to the picture, and just go back and forth, tweak it until you like what you see. And now I've moved on to the door, which I just have that same coal black. I just wanted it to be a little darker and left a couple lighter spots as well. And a little darker green on my brush, and just kind of doing the same thing for the wreath, adding some depth and dimension and richness to it. And I think it's a pretty sweet scene. You know, when I watch this over, I'm thinking, ooh, I wish I would have made the sky darker, and I wish I would have made it a night scene, because I think that would be beautiful. All right, I hope you have fun with this, and see you tomorrow for day 10.